Hi, Cindy.
Hi, Dean.
Okay, Cindy, tell people who you are, and then I have some questions for us.
Sounds good. I'm Cindy Carvalho. I'm a fractional CMO. I started in marketing 20 years ago, and the main theme of my corporate career has really been that marketing skills, can be applied to any different type of company, any size, and any industry. For the past decade or so, I've been brought in to help build or elevate marketing teams. And last year, I decided to formalize my skills into a fractional practice where I'm helping firms build a solid foundation under their marketing efforts.
I think the theme from my corporate career is, should you be in this job? The answer was no, I think, a lot of the time. Okay, so, Cindy, can you tell me what a fractional CMO is, even? And then imagine that, let's do it this way. Imagine that we've just started a brand new 1 year long engagement. You got a new client, right? Today's day one. Tell me what a fractional CMO is, and then tell me what happens in the first 90 days from the CMO's point of view.
Absolutely. So, a fractional CMO is essentially someone who has expertise. I would say 360 expertise in marketing, and will go into a company to really evaluate any gaps or challenges that there might be within marketing teams, within marketing strategy or efforts. And from there, can really make recommendations to help, again, companies elevate their marketing efforts to really help them drive towards their business objectives. In the first 90 days, especially I would say the first 30 days, fractional CMO's main responsibility is really to get a lay of the land.
Mhm.
So, what are the gaps? What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses, the areas of improvement? And really try to map that out excuse me, to map it out, and then from there start thinking about like recommendations, again based on the business objective. So fractional CMO needs to definitely meet with everyone who's involved with marketing, which probably means product teams, sales teams, HR teams as well, anyone who may or may not work with anyone within the marketing function, to really get a good sense, a good understanding of what's going on, what does it look like, and where do we go from here based on everyone's different objective.
Yeah, it makes sense. Okay, so hello, Scott. How are you? Scott, can you hear me?
Hello, how are you? Sorry.
Good, thanks. No problem. So, Scott, please tell folks a little bit about you, and then tell folks about in your experience. Plus, you know other fractional CMOs. Like, what does the first 90 day look like? 90 days look like for you, or the fractional CMOs that you've worked with or know.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm Scott Weiler, also fractional CMO. I left my last CMO corporate position a few years ago. That was with a hotel chain. And I spent most of my corporate career in hospitality and retail companies like Eddie Bauer, Spiegel, Marshall Fields, which is part of Target.
Hmm.
The last few years doing this, it's been mostly with growth companies and helping them accelerate whatever growth plan they happen to be on. I love this question. The one thing that I've learned, or a couple things that I've learned in my few years of doing this kind of work, is to a founder or CEO, the fractional CMO is the CMO. They don't really think of it
Hmm.
as, oh, you're part-time, you're something less than, whether that's the amount of time in a week or the length of the expected engagement. The other thing that I've learned is most of these companies have never had a CMO. Maybe they've had a director of marketing, maybe a VP of marketing, but they've never really had a classic, highly trained, deeply experienced CMO. And those two elements kind of cloud everything. But beyond that, the first 90 days, it's a lot of sharing vision and trying to find ways to develop and deliver a path to some quick wins, and having those two things stay connected to each other, not get too far in one direction or the other. Don't get mired in only quick wins, and you can't just be stuck on vision. You gotta kind of balance have a balancing act, I guess.
All right. So then, Scott, let's extend our hypothetical a little more. And I'm now the CEO of your client. Okay. And I probably had to convince somebody, like a board or investors or a leadership team or myself, to put aside money and bring in a fractional CMO for a year, right? Not an insignificant. I mean, not as expensive as someone at your level or Cindy's level full time, but definitely it's not like a freelancer on Upwork or something.
Right.
So I'm the CEO. I've allocated the spend. It's going to be 12 months. How do I to be blunt about it? How do I squeeze every last goddamn penny's worth of value out of a CMO once I hire a fractional CMO?
Yeah, I love this question. I use it almost verbatim with my CEOs early and often. And the answer is use me. I say this over and over again. Yes, for my marketing expertise, there's a reason you're investing in my capabilities and my expertise and experience. But in some ways, the bigger value for your CEO is that I get to share with them what I've learned from multiple highly successful CEOs that I worked with before them. For one high growth client of mine, I even bifurcated our weekly status agenda template into two categories: marketing stuff and CEO stuff. So he knew every week there'd be an opportunity for us to share ideas, feedback. Right. A lot of the feedback is me giving him feedback and coaching, but make sure he knows that we're going to do that throughout the engagement, and he can count on it.
So, Cindy, I'm going to invert the question. You can ask if you want, talk about like how CEOs get the most value, but you could also answer it this way: how do CEOs how do they waste the money? They put aside the money, they bring in a fractional CMO at the end of 12 months. Like, they're the reason that this was not a valuable experience. Like, the CEO is, not the CMO in this case. So the CEO looks at, okay, 12 months, like, what did I do wrong? How did they waste the money?
By
What
not
do they do or not do?
by not implementing the recommendations, right? I mean, if we bring in the recommendations, it's because fractional CMOs have seen best practices, have seen what works, what doesn't within different companies. And as I mentioned before, like different industries, they're all skills, it's all knowledge that can be applied in different areas. So I think that's how you would waste the money, would be essentially not to consider any of the recommendations and to simply continue in the same path that they were going before without the analysis provided by the fractional CMO.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so let's look at it. I'm still the CEO of this company, and so I'm looking at the staffers, junior staffers, mid-level staffers. There might even have been management in marketing prior to this fractional CMO coming on board, but there wasn't actually leadership team level leadership in marketing before. So this is day one for that, right? If I'm looking forward 3 months or even 12 months, now that I've got a fractional CMO brought in, how is that marketing team going to be different or better at the end of my new fractional CMO's 1 year engagement, say? What's going to be different about marketing a year from now?
The marketing efforts are going to be tied into the business objectives, which is often something I see that's not implemented. So you'll have marketing performing what I like to call random acts of marketing, but not necessarily marketing efforts or initiatives or campaigns that are tied in directly to the objective. So I'd say that the first thing that would be different from the team would be that there would be either KPIs or OKRs that would really measure the impact of each one of those activities or those efforts towards, again, the business objectives.
And Scott, what do you think? How's the team going to be different? Ideally better, but at least different a year after our fractional CMO starts.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the performance thing and KPIs. I couldn't agree more with Cindy. They're going to be part of something successful as we get further into it. You have to remember that we are brought in for a reason. The marketing is either leaving things on the table, it's not optimized, or in some cases, the company or the CEO feels it's downright broken. So what's the best thing for the marketing team, the incumbent team that's there? They get to go from being perceived as not so effective to part of a winning team, and everybody wants that. So, that's there's a lot of tactical things involved. There's tactical training, there's knowledge share, but really that higher order is going from we're undervalued, we're not liked, we're not doing great, to now we're a high performance team, we're delivering, the company loves what we're doing, right? So who doesn't want to be part of that?
Okay, fair enough. Let's go one layer deeper, all right, and change like our framework, I guess, for this scenario. Is that you're only going to get to have, we don't know why, you're only going to get to have one conversation with the most junior person in this marketing team. Right? This is their first ever full-time job, right? And so you've got to give advice to this 23-year-old about their career in marketing for the next several decades. What are you telling them, Scott?
Yeah, this is one of the favorite aspects of doing this job. In my case, I towards the end of my corporate career, I had a fairly large team. I had directors and senior managers underneath me, so I didn't really get to teach and coach the most junior members of the team that much. So I really love that, and so early on, we start a gig with a lot of questions. Right, we're asking the CEO, the executive team. We're also asking the most junior people on the marketing team, what do you think we should be doing differently? What do you think we should do better? And their coaching and development is the same thing. What do you want to get better at? I'm going to tell you the things that I know you need to get better at, but I want to know what you think too. And so that direct coaching and teaching, it's a lot of fun, and hopefully, if they see there's an opportunity to be a better marketer and be part of a better team, they're going to be engaged and they're going to want to learn from you.
True. All right. So Cindy, similar question. Your best friend says, "Hey, Cindy, I know like you're working as head of marketing. I don't know what exactly you do for a living because you've explained it 4 times, but I don't quite get it. But you're like in charge of stuff in marketing, right? And my kid graduated from college a few months ago and just started their first ever job, full career in marketing. Like, what advice would you want me to pass along to my kid at the start of their marketing career? Given your 10 decades of experience in marketing. Feels like 10 decades.
Feels like 10 decades, absolutely. I think it would be forget everything you learned in school. I've seen a number of junior marketers come out of school and have this, I'd say, illusion of what marketing is. I've even had an example where an intern came up to me and said, well, what I'm doing right now is not marketing. And I asked him the question, well, what do you think marketing is? And he's like, well, it's like brainstorming ideas and it's talking about strategy. And my answer to him was like, this isn't Mad Men. Like, we don't sit around with a glass of scotch, just like throwing ideas around. So it would definitely be that. I think there's this junior team members often have an idea or have this idea of what marketing is, but it isn't reality.
Glamorous.
Exactly. It isn't as glamorous. There's a lot of rolling up your sleeves and getting your hands dirty. There's a lot of asking questions. There's a lot of experiments, trial and error. So I guess my advice to someone who would be a junior would be just get your hands dirty, try different aspects of marketing as well. Don't necessarily like put yourself in a niche. Try digital marketing, try event marketing, try growth, try lead gen, like different areas of marketing to really identify what it is that you enjoy, but also what you're good at.
Okay. All right. So, Sydney, I've got a couple of questions in the time we have left. I'm going to tell you both of those. I can only tell you one of them. I don't know what the last one is. Well, I'm going to tell you how it goes. All right. I'm going to ask you. I'm going to let Scott ask you any question he wants to ask you, as you, Cindy, you, a fellow fractional CMO, you, a fellow solopreneur, whatever, right? You, a fellow longtime marketing expert, whatever field or a vector he wants to take on that question. And then you're going to ask him one too. But I want to ask first, right? Like, and not to be blunt, but there are easier ways to make a living than being a fractional CMO. It is often an enormously frustrating job, or a pressure-filled job, or a job with very often has unrealistic expectations. So, like, why do this one?
I love the variety. I love being able to help companies who might feel stuck get unstuck.
Mm-hmm.
And I would definitely say that that's what drives me to take that path, which, as you've mentioned, is not necessarily the easier path in marketing, but definitely gives me the opportunity to leverage
Got it. Okay.
those skills. Yeah.
So, yeah, the variety and having an impact, I guess,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. All right. And Scott, why do you do this job? And what question do you have for Cindy, who I'm sure is formulating a question for you at this moment?
Well, I do it. I do it because I love making a difference, and you know, in a one CMO, one corporation model, which I did most of my life. It's great. You get to find lots of wins. You get to make a difference, make impact. But it's kind of a singular path and singular way of doing it. I like this one because I get to touch lots of different companies, lots of different people over time, and you get that high from helping a company find a new way, a new path towards success. And then hopefully 3, 5, 7, 8 months later, you've got another couple companies and you help them do it again. So that energizes me. I love it.
All right. And what question would you have for fellow fractional CMO, Cindy Carvalho?
Well, so
you want to know some of the previous ones?
Sure.
And the reason I'm saying that is because this is episode 81. We've only had this question. This is season 4. So this is the 4th, 5th episode, 6th episode of season 1. So none of the other people's questions have been published yet. None of those episodes. So I can tell you the top 3 themes, and then I'm curious what you're going to... The top 3 themes that people really want to know from other fractional CMOs is, how do you handle scenario X? Right? Not because they don't know how to handle scenario X, because you want to see if someone else might have a different take on it, right? How do you find clients? And did you think this is what the job would be like when you went out on your own? Those are the 3 common themes. Yours doesn't have to be one of those, but as a guideline, if you want, or for Cindy, those are the top ones so far.
Okay, well, mine isn't one of those, Cindy.
Excellent. We got a 4th one.
So I'm curious, of the however many of these fractional CMO gigs you've done, what was your favorite so far, and why?
My favorite is probably one that I'm working on right now. It's a scale-up company that's growing quite rapidly. What I really enjoy about this specific mandate is essentially that everything is there to be built. Right. So the processes don't exist. They're open to any recommendation. They just want to do better. And I find that when you work with clients who have that openness and want to truly, and this is, truly genuinely improve how they're working, how they're doing their marketing, those are I'd say the mandates, the clients that I prefer.
Nice.
All right. And Cindy, what's your question?
Well, this might be a tricky one, but Scott, have you ever had a case where you've had to fire a client, or have you ever heard of other fractional CMOs having to fire a client?
I've never had to actually fire a client, but I've certainly had a couple of the conversations that lead up to that mutual ending of the engagement, if you will. And usually it comes down to, for me anyway, are we both getting all the value out of this that we should? There's a I don't know, there's a tendency to, you enjoy the company you're working with, you kind of start to get entrenched enough that, it starts to get a little easy, a little bit natural. And I think for us, for the fractional CMO, it's hard to always keep reminding yourselves that we're not meant to do this forever. These aren't supposed to be, 3 to 5 years. They're supposed to be 6 to 12 months. Mm-hmm. And then you move on. And now, I mean, I suppose maybe there are some cases where a 25-hour-a-week equivalent CMO is right, and that could keep going for a while. I haven't found it. Every client I've worked with, they need to get to a certain point, and then they need to bring in a full-time VP of marketing, or some other change has to happen. So anyway, so it's usually about, hey, we're kind of, we've hit all the big wins. We've set up a foundation for a future vision, a future structure, new go-to-market strategy, whatever it is. And then it's okay. So I don't think there's enough left here. I'd be happy to advise a bit for a while, but you've kind of got things underway. And anyway.
All right, I like that one. Okay, so Scott, who should be contacting you these days, and how should they get to you?
Well, I mean, the easiest is through LinkedIn, and most of my ways of promoting what I do is very simple and straightforward, and LinkedIn is a good place. Who should do it? I say that I'm always looking for high growth, early growth, high growth companies. A lot of the work that I've gotten in the last couple of years is through PE firms in particular. So whether you're the investor in one of those companies or you're the founder, CEO, that's my favorite phone call or email or LinkedIn message to get. Hey, love to have a conversation and see how you might be able to help us. So to me, that's the ideal. I'm kind of industry agnostic. I've got a lot of depth in travel and hospitality, kind of consumer driven, but I've done B2B for 25 years as well. So I'm open to the industry.
And Cindy, who should contact you these days, and how should they do it?
Definitely tech startups that are looking to scale, or high growth startups. I love that energy. I love the chance to make a real impact. And who should be contacting me? Well, definitely CEOs, founders are usually the ones who reach out. I've definitely also had some sales leaders and HR executives reach out where they felt that, there was probably a gap in the marketing team. And yeah, it's just, finding the right people to lead your marketing can be tricky. So I think that's where I can definitely come in and help, is really build that foundation and then really help you find the right person to take it on and, lead them to success.
All right. And how? LinkedIn, website?
Yeah, definitely LinkedIn is probably the best way to reach out to me.
All right. Guys, thanks so much for this. This has been very illuminating for me. I appreciate it. I always love that. I'm really loving these wild card questions at the end. You never know what someone's going to ask. I love it. I should have done this all along, not wait till like episode 80 something to do it. Live and learn, I guess.
We're always learning.
Yeah, always learning, right? All right. Thanks, Cindy, very much for this. And thanks, Scott. And thanks, anyone's watching. The analytics tell me that it's a 99.5% chance you're watching on a clip. So, hi, in a very short amount of time. Nice to talk to you. And stick around. We've got many, many episodes and 4 seasons coming up. So we're in good shape. There's lots of content here and a lot of great fractional CMOs to learn from. All right, everyone. Have a good day. Talk to you later.